Shelley Fabares was the girl next door. She was the familiar face who grew up in front of America's television screens, first as Mary Stone on the Donna Reed Show, then as an actress who successfully made the difficult transition from child star to adult performer. But behind that cheerful image was a life that became much more complicated with age, marked by a long Hollywood career, two very different marriages, a serious liver illness, and a medical crisis that nearly cost her life. And now, at 82, Shelley Fabares is gone. Her family confirmed that she died in Los Angeles on August 23, 2026, surrounded by loved ones. But there is one important detail that should be made clear from the beginning. Her family has not publicly disclosed the cause of death. That distinction matters, because Fabares had experienced major health problems decades before her death. Her medical history is well documented, but it would be wrong to automatically assume that the illness she survived in 2000 was the direct cause of her death. So who was Shelley Fabares beyond the television roles? And what happened during the years when her life suddenly became much more uncertain? Shelley Fabares was born Michelle Marie Fabares in Santa Monica, California, in 1944. Entertainment wasn't completely foreign to her family. Her aunt was actress and singer Nanette Fabre, and Shelley entered show business while she was still very young. She appeared on television as a child before landing the role that would change everything. In 1958, Fabares joined the Donna Reed Show as Mary Stone, the teenage daughter of Donna Reed's character. The series became enormously popular, and Fabares spent years growing up in front of the audience. What made her story unusual was that she didn't simply disappear when the child star years ended. She kept working. That is much harder than it sounds. Hollywood has always been fascinated with young stars, but it has never been particularly kind to them when they grow older. Fabares managed to build something that many performers from her generation couldn't, a second act. During the 1960s, Fabares also became associated with Elvis Presley. She appeared opposite Presley in 3 movies, Girl Happy, Spin Out, and Clambake. She wasn't simply an actress, either. In 1962, she released Johnny Angel, which became a major pop hit and reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. For a young actress, it was an extraordinary moment. Television audiences knew her. Movie audiences knew her. And suddenly, music listeners knew her too. But fame at that age came with another challenge, figuring out what kind of adult life she wanted when the cameras stopped rolling. Fabares' first marriage was to record producer Lou Adler. The relationship began during the 1960s, but the marriage eventually became separated for many years before the divorce was finalized in 1980. It was not the lasting Hollywood romance that people sometimes imagine when looking back at celebrity marriages. Her second marriage would be very different. Shelley Fabares first crossed paths with actor Mike Farrell in 1970 when she appeared on his television series The Interns. But nothing romantic happened at the time. Years passed. Both had experienced previous marriages, and eventually they met again at a CBS Affiliates convention. This time, the connection was different. They began spending time together, and Farrell eventually proposed. The couple married in 1984 at the Pacific Palisades home of Fabares' aunt, Nanette Fabre. Farrell was already a father of 2 children from his previous marriage, and the early years of their blended family weren't effortless. Fabares later acknowledged that divorce had been difficult for Farrell's children and that creating a comfortable family relationship required patience and understanding. But the marriage endured. And eventually, Farrell became one of the most important people in Fabares' life. That would become especially significant when her health began to deteriorate. In the late 1990s, Fabares experienced serious health problems. After recovering from an accident that left her with several broken ribs, doctors investigated further and eventually diagnosed her with severe autoimmune hepatitis. The illness caused progressive liver damage. Then, in early 1999, the situation became dramatically more serious. Fabares suffered a major medical emergency related to her failing liver and was taken to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center. Doctors determined that medication could no longer reverse the damage and that she needed a liver transplant. For someone who had spent decades appearing healthy and energetic on television, the reality must have been difficult to comprehend. Suddenly, her future depended on receiving a donor organ. In October 2000, Fabares underwent a liver transplant. Contemporary reporting said she was recovering well and that doctors expected her to make a full recovery. She survived, and that survival became one of the most important chapters of her life. By the time Fabares reached the 1980s and 1990s, she had already survived the difficult transition from child actress to adult performer. Then came Coach. Beginning in 1989, she played Christine Armstrong opposite Craig T. Nelson. The series became another major chapter in her career, running for years and earning Fabares 2 Primetime Emmy nominations. Think about the longevity of that career. She had been a television child star in the 1950s. She had been a pop singer in the 1960s. She had appeared alongside Elvis Presley. She returned to television in the 1970s. Then, decades after her first major success, she became recognizable to an entirely new generation through Coach. That kind of career is rare. Fabares also devoted considerable attention to Alzheimer's awareness. Her mother, Elsa, suffered from Alzheimer's disease, and the experience affected Fabares deeply. She became involved with the Alzheimer's Association and served as a spokesperson, turning a painful family experience into an effort to help others. That side of her life is easy to overlook because Hollywood biographies often concentrate on television credits and famous co-stars. But it says something important about Fabares. Her story wasn't only about fame. It was also about family, caregiving, illness, and trying to remain useful after the spotlight became less intense. Following her transplant and later career work, Fabares increasingly lived a quieter life. She continued to be remembered by fans of classic television, while maintaining a much lower public profile than she had during the height of her career. Then came the news on August 23, 2026. Shelley Fabares died at her Los Angeles home at the age of 82, surrounded by people who loved her. Her family described her as a source of love, strength, laughter, and comfort. But as of the latest reports, there is no publicly confirmed cause of death. That means claims online suggesting a specific illness caused her death should be treated carefully. What we do know is that Fabares had already faced an extraordinarily serious health battle years earlier, and survived it. Shelley Fabares' story is not really about one television show. It is about longevity. She entered entertainment as a child and became famous before she was old enough to understand what fame would eventually demand from her. She survived the transition from child star. She found success in music. She worked with Elvis Presley. She built another successful television career with Coach. She experienced the breakdown of one marriage before finding a lasting partnership with Mike Farrell. She faced a life-threatening liver disease and underwent a transplant. And after all of that, she continued living quietly away from the enormous spotlight that had followed her for so many decades. Her death closes a remarkable chapter in classic American television. For one generation, she will always be Mary Stone. For another, she will be Christine Armstrong. And for many others, she will simply be Shelley Fabares, an actress who managed something remarkably difficult in Hollywood. She grew up, kept working, survived a devastating health crisis, found lasting love, and remained remembered long after the television cameras stopped rolling. And perhaps that is the most fitting way to remember her. Not simply as a former child star. Not simply as the woman who sang Johnny Angel. But as a performer whose career stretched across generations, and whose life was considerably deeper than the cheerful characters she played on screen.